Hey everybody, welcome to Top Chef Fantasy League, the podcast that eats off the table for every meal. I'm your host and commissioner, Mike Cablon. With me are my co-host, Sierra Cotto, and freshly back from his travels, Ify Wadiway. Ify, where were you? Tell us everything.
Oh, man. So this will be around, like, kind of the spots that we've talked about the Midwest. I was in Hocking Hills, Ohio.
Hocking Hills, Ohio.
Yes, and State College, Pennsylvania.
What are the closest major cities to each of those towns?
Oh, man.
And why were you there? I should have opened with that.
Yeah, Hocking Hills, Columbus is the closest major one. And State College is, like, in between, like, Pittsburgh and Philly. Like, it's, like, out in the middle of Pennsylvania. But I was out in State College doing an improv festival. I did a workshop, did a faculty show. And in Hocking Hills, Travis McElroy has an event called Champions Grove, where people go to this. The best way I can describe it, and I describe it in a complimentary way.
Here we go.
But it is as if medieval times was a hotel. That's how I would. That's how I would describe Ravenwood Castle. It's like it's a castle.
If you told me that it was called Ravenswood Castle, I would have guessed within three guesses. Is it like medieval times, but a hotel?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so there's no like knights and jousting, but it's all decked out with like King Arthurian stuff. There's tons of board games, and apparently normally they run a lot of murder mysteries out of there, like interactive murder mysteries that span the whole hotel.
I'm going to guess that and magic shows.
I don't know if they do it, but they should.
That's a missed opportunity right there.
So I was there. I did some mini paintings. I did a kind of like office hours where I got to talk to people who were fans of my work and stuff like that. Then I ran a D&D game. And that was fun. So it was a total blast. It was really cool.
What I'm hearing is nerd shit. You were really doing nerd shit.
This was when we asked, like, could it be we might try a remote episode for the first time? And you're like, I'm going to be in a castle with potentially, no technology. So
I had no service. I did I still had therapy, and it was like very like choppy, and I was like, man,
that's rough.
I know,
that's
especially for me, because I finally have, because I have lots of friends who will have therapists that they're attracted to, and I was like, oh, my therapist is hot. And I was like, oh, why would you do that? I did it.
You have a hot therapist.
Yeah, hot therapist.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it to me, I feel like I understand why men like always like get so like tapped in on their like hot therapist, because when you're talking to your hot therapist, it's like, oh yeah, because like men typically use their partners as therapists, and I was like, and it just feels like you're in a conversation with your girlfriend.
Right. Yeah, that's what I hear. Is it's like, if you're going deep with somebody emotionally, right? Sometimes people confuse that with the relationship if they're not used to doing that with everybody. So men, get your shit together.
It must be hard to be a hot therapist. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
You got to have your clients left and right just always being like...
Quick turnover,
Yeah. You got to get out of my office now.
Oh, yeah.
Well, because I also wonder what happens if, like, a therapist for any reason is like, oh, my client's really hot. But you're also getting, like, you're looking under
all
the
their
hood.
fucked up shit.
Yeah. Right. Surely that goes away immediately.
You're like, actually, never
It's impossible to find any
client.
clients.
That's true.
Well, we're glad you're back. We made this announcement last week. We'll continue to make this announcement at the top of every episode. But after Top Chef is done, we will be pivoting to MasterChef.
Yeah.
We will be covering a completely different show, so the podcast isn't going anywhere. MasterChef started this past Wednesday, as of the time that you're listening to this. So if you haven't started watching, now would be the time to start watching. You still got a few weeks to catch up, because those first 4 episodes of MasterChef are all going to be audition episodes, so not super important to gameplay, but use it as an opportunity to scout some talent, draft your teams. And, I'm excited to get started on MasterChef.
Yeah, me too. That's going to be really fun. I love that it's also the same time. Nothing really changes for us. Mm-hmm. We're like, all right. We'll
Nothing about our life changes.
Right. We just leave the TV on.
Yeah, exactly. But we are still talking about Top Chef, so let's talk about this week's episode. Initial reactions. What's going through your head in this episode?
I mean, it was, again, it's something about this season where you have some favorites who you think are going to be, of course, as we know, Michelle leaves.
Gone too soon.
And it's really like, it just takes the one bad dish, I guess. And I think, and it puts the judges in this, thing where they're like, this doesn't seem like her. I don't know. It's happened because we had that with Rosica. We kind of had it with, kind of Sue. I mean, again, I don't know if he was as high as
I went back and forth on this
uh-huh.
because something that Sue said when he got eliminated was like, at this point in the competition, there are no bad days. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where it's just like, you can't.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you can't have a bad day.
Yeah,
Is that
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
yes.
And
right.
I was like, Michelle had a bad day at the worst possible time because it's right after Last Chance Kitchen
exactly.
ended.
That was also a huge bummer, right?
I know.
Yeah.
That's what really kind of sucked. Seeing Laura come back, beating Amanda, and really, it's so funny because I feel like the Laura villain arc was working on me, and I was not a fan. And then after the Last Chance Kitchen, I actually really kind of saw her power, and I think. Losing Amanda was really tough, but I was so sure that, Michelle was going to go to the final.
I thought so too, for sure.
And it really, and I don't think I fully agree with the choice that was made. Like, if we're talking.
Hot take.
Yeah. I mean, I think there are no bad chefs. I think they're so good. But if we're talking about, I do think there is an element that the judges don't do. We all talk about where it's you should be looking at the bigger picture where it's if it is 2 bad dishes, 2 bad days, who has the most consistency? And the person that did not get cut is possibly one of the most inconsistent and possibly had the exact same note last week. So I was like, I don't know why you made this pick. Was genuinely surprising. But once again, we felt that way with Roscoe, where it's they make a choice and you're like, I don't know why that's the choice you made. Especially for, if we're talking full picture, Roscoe had so much room to grow. It was very interesting why, it was
I feel like the answer is that it makes for better television to have someone perform really strongly and the one time they fuck up, send them home. You know what I mean?
Oh, interesting. I mean, I think also, I haven't really been on the Reddit thread lately, but I am looking at the Instagram comments of Top Chef official Instagram, and people are kind of, upset at the season.
Yeah.
I think there's changes for sure, as they always tell us. But, I think there are a few chefs, who maybe, have kind of middled the whole time, and they have been safe. And then, we have had the huge stars have their one bad day. So it's they're kind of on polar opposites.
Middling is a valid strategy, though,
yes.
in any sort of competition, but also on this show in particular, a lot of the winners have been sort of neither top nor bottom. They do okay, and they last long enough that they can flourish at the end. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. And I think if these middling chefs we're talking about do come through in the end and are really oh my God, they found their voice, which I've totally seen seasons they win us over, they will still be, the Top Chef, of course. And that does happen because it's kind of a growing, growing pains thing, right?
Yeah.
But because we're at this point, it hasn't really happened yet for some of them. Who knows?
Yeah, not to have this drag on because we're going to hit all the beats of it, but it's to that point, I feel like everyone who is middling and then finding their voice has already done that. Savannah has popped off in a very strong way. I feel like, all of the other, but Dan, surprisingly, is popping off in a very strong way. But Dan's kind of been on fire all season, if we're being honest. A
little dark horsey to me. I didn't really expect that much.
Yeah,
totally.
But my man Manny has struggled. They always say he plays it safe. They always say he's not creative enough. That is a consistent note they give him. So when he's standing down there with Michelle, when they're like, "Oh, we know you're so good. We know you do all this great things. We're gonna send you home." I'm just kind of looking at it
I think it's that middle strategy we were just talking about. Because last week with the fish boil, it's they said the food isn't bad. It's just not enough. Do you know what I mean? It's good guacamole and good rice, but it's guacamole and rice, and that's sort of middle behavior. You know what I mean? So as long as you're not doing as long as you're not totally bombing, which, look, we'll get into it. Maybe he bombed this week.
Yeah.
Let's dive into the episode. I also just want to say quickly, these are my favorite challenges collectively of any episode. I love the quick fire challenge. Love the elimination challenge.
Oh, yeah. The quick fire challenge was so fun and interesting.
Yeah. Let's talk about that right now. We start off the episode. Everyone's talking about their families. Only, I went back and I double checked. Only Savannah and Michelle say the word miss.
Oh yes,
They're the only
I was
ones.
this is the right time to say it, guys.
It felt like all of them were going to rack up their little quarter of a point for saying they missed their whatever. Only Savannah said she misses her family. Michelle said she misses her boyfriend. Dan and Manny both talked about their partners. They never said on air, "I miss them."
Yeah.
So they're missing out on the points there. The other note I wrote down: Savannah's dad made her knives. That is adorable.
Yeah.
What a
Incredible.
beautiful,
Yeah,
symbolic.
And then showing them sharpen them was like, they got to do that on their downtime.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
Savannah's dad, I now want a spin-off show about, because he was like a CIA Navy SEAL something. He did something cool and impressive, and now he makes knives for funsies.
Yikes.
I'm like, that's a man I don't want to fuck with.
I know a guy who does this. I forget what his regular job was. I think it was a chef, but Majima Knives on Instagram. You check it out.
Ooh.
He makes these great knives, and it's my friend's like cousin or brother-in-law, and I kept trying to be like, hey man, I really like them knives. Like, I'm trying to get like a discount because they are like good knives, so they're very expensive.
Yeah.
So I keep being like, hey man, you should tell them about, Dropout Star loves.
Yeah. You'll post about it. You'll put it in the stories.
Yeah. The other note I wrote down, Dan tried out for this show 13 times.
That was such a shock.
It was a shock to me.
I mean, I feel like they don't reveal that a lot for chefs on this show, where it's like, there's like a process. It's kind of like keep the magic alive.
Right.
This is their first time here kind of thing. But also, I mean, God, he's a huge super fan then, I guess, probably to keep
And he had to wait for them to come to his hometown.
Yeah, and he's like, this is my time, and it
exactly.
was. So.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
And he's probably a better chef now than he was 13 years ago. So
I know.
This is just a reminder to keep going. Don't give up on your dreams. All right, so we get to the kitchen. Laura is back. No one looks really happy about it. And I couldn't tell if it's because of they all blamed on like the competition aspect. But I'm also...
No, I think Danny is still hot.
Yeah.
Because Danny was personally fucked by her twice.
Yes.
So I was like, that's very real beef.
That's so funny.
Yeah. I feel like the villain edit, there's some truth to that. Like, we know that reality TV is distorted and the villain edit is an edit, but I'm also like, I feel like Danny does actually kind of hate her guts. You know what I mean?
And it's probably in combination with the fact that they know she's extremely well trained, and so she is actually like a lethal...
a force to be reckoned with. Yeah. So we start with the quick fire, which is Tom made this amazing lobster stir fry for Gail and Kristen.
Yeah.
And they had to recreate it based on 20 questions or 24 questions.
Yes.
But I love the format of this so much. It is so much fun.
It was a lot of fun. And I think also the funny thing that we were noticing watching was like, again, I mean, this was another episode that was like all in the kitchen.
Yeah.
So and again, I think they've done a lot with Wisconsin. So maybe they're just trying to split it up between doing the going out and about and staying in the kitchen. But it felt like, another like whatever Top Chef's bottle episode where it's like, something fell through. What do we do? Cook something, Tom. I mean, it worked out in the end. It was very fun to watch, but it was funny that both, again, the quick fire and the elimination were like in the same location.
Yeah. We're not going anywhere in this episode. I wrote down that I think a lot of these questions are fucking useless.
Oh man, it really is. I feel like everything we do as writers and comedians make us real good at that game, and it felt like the Top Chef version of like the Jeopardy dumb people category. Because Jeopardy, they have all the categories that these like brainiacs will crush at,
right?
And then the one regular people category that none of them know because it's like,
it's usually sports.
And everyone at home gets to be like, they can't know that. I felt like that was this, where I was like, why are you asking such bad questions in this game?
I feel like it is there. Look, I'm not in that situation. I'm sure there's a lot of pressure involved. It's like you got 30 minutes to cook a dish, you don't know what it is, and also you have to ask good questions. But I'm like, so I wrote down that someone asked if it's soup, and then 3 questions after that are, is it porridge, is it bouillabaisse, and is it cipino? I'm like, those are fucking soups, you guys.
Right.
We already said no.
Wasting your questions.
That I had the exact same feeling as you. Em tried to be like, well, porridge technically isn't a soup, so
Get
maybe
out of here.
I was like, no, I feel like once I heard soup, I would not have asked porridge.
Yeah.
Right, and I would feel mad if they said, it's a porridge. I'd be like, you said it wasn't a soup. What if we hadn't asked that,
They jump to like specific questions way too quick, or it's like, is it a tomato? But just ask if it's a tomato, if tomato's in there.
Right.
Don't ask if it's a type. Just start with the veggie, then zero in. Why are we zeroing in?
They're getting and then they could say no, and then it was another kind of tomato thing, it's you gotta start big. But again, running around, so I'm like, they kind of also sometimes it seemed like some of them were already like, okay, I know what it is, and like starting to cook.
Manny started with tomatoes, and then found out there were no tomatoes. He's like, well, I gotta throw all this out.
Right, great.
That's
I blended
so
all this tomato stuff.
So the dishes that got the closest to Tom's dish were Savannah, Michelle, and Dan. Savannah got the closest because she said she could smell, wok, ginger, garlic, and also she noticed that there were woks in the kitchen, which aren't usually in the kitchen, which I think is really smart.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
She's playing the game.
Oh, yeah.
But when she said I could smell the wok, I was like, oh my god.
M had to explain that for me, but it's just that I forget what it's called. That it's like a wok. Basically like when you season the wok.
Okay.
Sure,
It's a very specific.
It's like
smell.
smelling a cast iron skillet.
Yeah.
Sort of. Yeah.
Sure.
And it's
yeah,
like,
believe...
I know what ingredients you need to use to make this smell happen.
Yeah.
I see. Yeah, I just became a wok owner myself.
Hey,
like
congrats.
A real one.
Okay.
You know, real one.
Welcome to the wok.
And,
Real wok
thank
with
you.
the actual like
the round,
concave.
Yeah.
How do you use that at home?
Because I had a fake one before where it had a flat bottom. Yeah, I mean, you can do any sort of. I mean, I still can have it on the stove. It works fine. Yeah, I guess maybe it's a smaller one.
Yeah,
it's not
some
like
people
a
run into the problem
one.
of like if you get a real wok, but you're in just like a home stove. It doesn't really sit on the. You know what I mean?
I think because it's smaller. I think the big ones,
nice.
because it's so curved. But this one's good. But yeah, the seasoning process, Dylan did it. I mean, it was like quite involved. And it turns like blue almost. It's crazy.
Whoa.
So anyway, I kind of understand that there might be something there.
There's
with
a smell associated with that.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Well, it nets her $10,000 in quick fire, quick cash. Her total winnings are now up to $28,000. At the bottom, we have Laura. Hers is a little salty. Manny with too much lime, and Danny's, which looked nothing like Tom's, but it was delicious. It just wasn't Tom's dish, which I think is a pretty good consolation prize.
Yeah.
And then we go to our elimination challenge, which was to serve a meal directly on a tabletop. This was another one where I'm like, I feel like viewers at home are going to have strong feelings about this, which is how I felt about Chaos Cuisine. But I was like, I love this challenge.
Oh, yeah. Have you been to Alinity?
Alinea, yes.
Alinea. Okay.
I've been to Alinea. I literally have a picture of me and Laura in front of that tablescape. I'll put it up
cool.
right now. Here's the picture.
Ooh, I like that outfit you got on.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you guys look great. Really excited to be there.
Well, yeah, because M loves Alinea too, and was like, and she was like, oh, that's just like Alinea, and, and Tom's like, Alinea does this, and she's like, it was so good.
Yeah.
I won't bust the comic out because but like he had this story, and he's like a road dog comic, real funny guy.
Okay.
But he went to Alinea with Chelsea Handler, who is Whitney Cummings, who's friends with the
Grant Achatz.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so he was like laughing, like he kind of felt bad because Whitney Cummings was just being Whitney Cummings and being funny and goofing off, and he was like, all these people waited like months to come to this restaurant, and we're just goofing off.
Right, yeah.
But he said it was the best food he ever had in his life.
It is quite a meal. The tabletop presentation is so much fun. One of my favorite little, there's a million magic tricks involved with the meal, and one of them is some of the liquids they pour form squares on the table.
Ooh.
And
what?
I think I know how it's done, but it breaks your brain a little bit to be like,
nice.
If there's a pool on the table, it should be a circle, but it's a square, and it's so fucking fun.
I'm locked in.
Amazing.
Next time I'm in Chicago.
We're going. We're going to Alinea.
I'm gonna have to hit up Whitney Cummings. Like, give me your plug.
Let's.
And of course, on the other end of tabletops, I was also when they said the challenge was tabletop, part of my brain was like, oh, like Alinea, and part of my brain was like, oh, like the white women on TikTok who troll people by putting like nacho cheese on their countertop.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Okay, that's right.
Well,
that's so funny. Yeah,
I've
seen that. It's horrifying.
Amanda is so important, and why we were
representation matters.
We were robbed because the moment they would have said tabletop, I know she would have been like, are we gonna play D&D? Dan didn't do it. Dan didn't step up to the nerd plate. Amanda would, but we know that she's gonna win fan favorite anyway. So.
Ooh, interesting. Okay,
wow,
I've got thoughts on it.
Really?
We kind of talked about this last week because voting opened last week. Who do you think is going to win fan favorite?
It should be Amanda, and this is my this is I'm making a big deal of this to force Mike to clip this out. This is my pitch.
Mark this time
if
stamp.
you love if you love nerds and you love food and you love nerds that love to cook food, you got to go with Amanda. Amanda was there with the nerdy jokes at all times. and I'm ending with a rhyme.
That's good. That's good.
Wow, that was well prepared.
I think Amanda's up there. We were saying top 2 is either her or Michelle.
Yeah, I was thinking Michelle,
baby,
and especially now because we talked before Michelle got knocked off, I feel like people are going to feel wronged by this.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So there's a chance they'll be like, well, I'm more passionately going to pick up the phone and call in. No, I don't know how you vote. Online, probably.
Yeah, it's online.
That's right. Call in, American Idol.
Those are the 2 ones who I think could win fan favorite.
Mm-hmm.
My sort of like Bodie McBoatface vote is like everyone vote for David Murphy. It would be
my
so
God.
funny.
That's the only thing I would accept
God.
besides
If
Amanda.
David Murphy
That's so funny.
got it.
Yeah, just to see how Top Chef would squirm. Like, how
Yes,
are they
exactly.
going
How are they gonna handle that?
Yeah, well, most likely they just not give it to him and say the numbers went to whoever
Yeah,
second.
exactly.
Yeah, they'd look at it and was like, nope.
They'd have to pick second place.
This is not like real democracy here.
Yeah,
This is,
yeah. I was debating whether or not I want to tell this story. You guys want to hear a fun story?
Yes.
I was voted prom king in high school, but I didn't go to prom. And the next day, the student body president said we had to give it to the second place guy.
What?
Because we can't. It's like if you would have bought a ticket, you would have been prom king, but we can't award prom king to someone who isn't at prom.
Oh, wow.
Interesting. So it's a money thing.
It's a money thing.
Well,
That's what it
Bribe
is.
the president or whatever. Yeah.
Knowing you got prom king kind of gives me a vibe.
Now
of
you know who I was in high
Yeah,
school.
no, that's actually
Yeah.
a very, okay.
Mr. Magnanimous, shaking
Interesting.
hands with every little
Yeah.
click.
Kissing
Oh,
babies.
yeah.
All right then.
Well, that like sultry voice, like it makes sense.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, and I had this voice since I was like 12.
Yeah.
I've always
Right.
sounded like this.
That's why they voted for you.
Thank you so much. Yeah. All right.
The man's voice, child.
Can you stop using LiveJournal and like upload your voice notes or something?
That would have been it. That would have been the move.
Ahead of your time.
Our guest judge this episode is Chef Curtis Duffy of Ever, which I think most people know as the restaurant that Richie trains at in The Bear. In the Spoons episode where Richie learns like what a restaurant is.
Yeah.
That's Ever that he's working at. That's Chef Curtis Duffy's restaurant. And so as soon as they brought him out, I was like, oh, yeah, okay, there we go.
Nice.
And Danny gets an extra 30 minutes for winning the last elimination challenge. There's only 6 contestants now, so we can talk about every chef. I don't feel bad diving into all of them. Let's talk about Manny first with his squid ink risotto thing. Risotto. Right off the bat.
Also, that is why he should have lost. That
Because
is why
everyone
he should have
told him
lost.
not to do it.
Everyone told him not to do it.
Yeah.
History has told him not to do it.
Right.
His own friend did it. Got told it was
The
the
other
best.
power bottom.
Yeah.
Got told it was the best risotto that they've had
Right.
in a long time and still got sent home.
Yeah.
And this mofo gets to do it and just live.
Sure, yeah. I mean, and yeah, he like kind of didn't really understand the instructions of like maybe, he's like, well, I'm swinging, so I'm doing risotto. It's like,
Well, that was
whoa.
what it is. That's my only thing where I'm like, in
Yeah.
his defense, Tom told him swing for the fences. It was like, what bigger swing than risotto on Top Chef? Which is like...
Yeah, is that though? I mean, I'm kind of like, well, you're right. It is what he interpreted to be the big swing, but it's almost fun. It's almost comical being like, safe, risotto,
Yeah.
instead
Yeah.
of like finding like maybe
A happy
going-
middle ground.
Yeah,
Yeah.
75% the way there, but sure. And I mean, Gail thought it had great flavor.
It did
and,
taste...
it
His
was
dish
cool
tasted
looking.
good. Mm-hmm. But all the seafood was way overcooked, and the risotto didn't have the right texture.
And the panko.
And the empty panko. So this is where I have to disappointedly report to myself that I'm losing a half a point here because he messed up risotto. That's minus a quarter of a point, and he missed plating something. There was a pile of panko, and he's like, there was supposed to be something on there. That's another quarter of a point, so I lost a half point on Manny here. The big positive that I got for Manny, he used to be in an emo band. Are you kidding me?
Yes.
Look, I'm not big on like plugging my own stuff in my own stuff because I don't need to. But I am in an emo karaoke band that plays here in LA. And Manny, you're welcome anytime. Any song you want to do, we will bust out for you.
I'm so glad you plugged that because I did not know that
Really?
you did that. Yeah, and now I need to go.
Our next
to your
show,
show.
We'll make it. Yeah, this will come out before then. June 27th at the Offbeat in Highland Park.
Oh, in my neighborhood, so I can just walk
Just
there?
swing on by.
That's how you get me. Friends, if you
Amazing.
want me to see something, that do it in Highland Park where I don't have to do anything and I can get as drunk as I want after your performance.
No, midway through.
So
It's
before your
karaoke. It's more
performance?
fun if you're drunk.
Yeah, okay. Hell
Yeah. Anyway, we're called karaoke without the E. So Manny, please come sing with us, and everyone else come to our show.
So yeah, when you do it,
like
since it's a karaoke emo,
Yeah.
is it a thing where the crowd is singing with you, or are you inviting people up?
Oh, it's like karaoke style. There's a sign-up sheet, and you pick your song, and you sing it.
Oh my God.
It's so much fun.
All I've ever wanted.
Me too. That's why I did it. This is like the ultimate level of musicianship for me, because like I do play guitar, but I don't write songs. I have no desire to tour. You know what I mean? So it's like I only want to play the songs that I love, that I grew up with, which is like exactly what Manny is talking about. And I want to play it for like a crowd of people who love those songs. Like, we don't have a TV with lyrics. We have paper if you need it.
Oh,
but
cool.
for the most part, what we find is these songs, people know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
More often than not, we're like, do you need lyrics? And they're like, no, I'm okay.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Please. And then what didn't Manny self-identify as like an elder
An elder emo.
I never
Yeah.
Really?
I was like, is it that?
You're looking at one, baby.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Well, there
Yeah.
you go.
No, that really endeared me to him. That's like he got my fan favorite vote on that. You know what I mean?
Look, I never
There you go.
said I'd lie and wait forever. This I know. We'd be together, and
This is good.
oh yeah, look,
That's great.
Look, I will
Because not only to quote My Chemical Romance, but to quote their slow song. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah,
Not even fucking Black Parade or I'm Not Okay or anything, but to go right for the ballad.
Oh yeah, like Ghost of You is my like favorite all timer song. I think it's oh yeah.
I love learning new things about you.
Yeah.
The other thing is, Manny, I want to know what your band is. You put out 3 albums. They have to exist somewhere.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. God.
Send us a CD. You know what I mean? I want to hear your band, Manny. I want to hear your band.
Yeah.
All right. Any other thoughts about Manny before we move on?
No.
Let's talk about Laura. The only dessert course,
Oh my God.
which I love.
I think that is such a smart move, just on a meta level too.
Yeah.
You get to go last, and you're doing something completely different, so you're not being compared to in any way.
Yeah.
So you knock a dessert out the park. You just get to have a really great dish, which is what they asked for.
Yeah.
And not be up against, people who might have had a savory dish that was slightly better than yours, and now you're getting knocked out of the park.
Right.
And also I think now just the way she did it was so beautiful, but also just thinking about dessert and like playfulness and everything. And,
Yes.
You're getting the sweet at the end or whatever. There's like something really great about mixing that with the tabletop element, because, you're kind of, there's always going to be like, caramels or like liquidy things in dessert.
This is the Alinea version. The Alinea course is a dessert course on the table.
Yeah.
And it is that kind of stuff. It's just like little puddles of sweet. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that feels like it lends itself so nicely to that.
Everyone was talking about her chewy ice cream, the Mirage.
Oh, yeah.
I tried to find it here in LA because I was like, I've never had that.
Yeah, I was trying to like rewind to figure out what it was.
It's called Mirage. It's also called Dondorma, and it doesn't exist in LA, as far as I could tell. So if anyone out there knows where we can get this Turkish ice cream in LA, please let us know, because we want to try it.
Yeah. Also, if you are one of the chefs that are watching this along business opportunity.
That's right.
Summer
There's
is
a
about
hole
to
in the
start.
market here.
Yeah, and we will be your first 3 customers.
The people want Mirage or Dondorma.
Yeah.
I loved the little smash cut edit of her little artful plating versus Savannah, like in this chaotic mad dash.
Like shucking oysters after she cut her hand last week. I'm like, oh my God, don't wound yourself.
Yeah. I love a good edit. Here's something I just have to get off my chest, because I haven't seen anyone else talk about this point yet. Because when I'm putting together this little outline, I like read some other recaps, I read some Reddit stuff, see what other people are talking about. No one else brought this up. I don't want to add fuel to the villain edit fire.
Oh no.
But while they were shopping, Laura said she's done this kind of thing before. She's like, I used to work at 11 Madison Park.
I also
we
caught
put
this.
down paper on the table. We did a seafood boil. And then when she's presenting her dish,
Right.
Kristen says, have you done anything like this before? And Laura says, I never thought in my life that I would be doing something like this.
Yeah. Okay. I totally caught that too, and I was like, I'm like, maybe she thinks just specifically this dessert on the table. Like
She thought the
this?
nature of the question is, Did you ever think you would be here on Top Chef cooking on a tabletop for
like
me, Kristen Kish?
Did she make that dessert before? Or like, I don't know.
That is a bad faith interpretation of that question.
No, for sure. So I'm like, maybe there's like miscommunication. Because here's the thing with Laura and her and the villain edit for me. Every time something happens, I slightly am like, she kind of doesn't understand maybe what's going on. So maybe that's the benefit of the doubt. So that's why, again, I interpreted that as like, does she not understand? Or is she full out lying?
I know. It's better TV to say that she's lying. Because the alternative is if she doesn't understand, I'm like, why? Why doesn't she understand?
Right. I know for sure. There should be, I'm definitely being like way too lenient about that, I guess. But it's so funny thinking like, yeah, so then is it better to say, oh, I just pulled this out of my ass and like nailed it?
Because Bravo editors will do this on other shows where it's like if someone on a Bravo show makes a bold-faced lie, they will cut back to show them lying. And I was like, they're this close from cutting back to her shopping, being like, I did this at 11 Madison Park. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, that's what I'm like. Also, the most famous restaurant where like you would do something like this. So I'm like, she can't claim that she has never cooked like something. Yeah. I don't know. Weird.
Yep.
It was something that happened in two separate instances that had to be edited together, which is why no one called her on it. But as a home viewer, I was like, wait a minute. Yeah. I just heard you 10 minutes ago saying you've done this before.
Yeah, I did catch that.
Anyway.
Definitely wouldn't have happened if Amanda got bumped up.
Every negative thing is wouldn't happen if Amanda were still here.
Yeah. She would never lie.
She would never. She's never lied in her life.
Anyway, the course looked amazing. The big phyllo disc people loved.
So funny.
Yeah. It looked delicious. I want to try it. I want to try Mirage. And I want to listen to Manny's band.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Let's talk Savannah next. Savannah with her Zensai course out of a kaiseki meal. I love this idea.
Yeah.
I thought it was one of the more coursed out platings. She was like, here's the tempura and here's the octopus and here you finish with an oyster, which I thought was a nice little touch. It wasn't just like, here's a table, go crazy. It was like, I'd like you to end with the oyster,
Yeah, the mountain.
But her octopus was chewy. Ironically, she said she should have used a pressure cooker.
Wow. Oh, funny.
Which would have been, high risk in terms of fantasy points, but she didn't.
Right.
But it was a pretty table. Not much to say. She landed in the middle.
Yeah. I was impressed with how much she put out because it was just like so many different things to prepare and
I never know if it's editing, but it seems like she put the last piece of tempura down as the timer went off. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I always wonder about that too because it does. Everybody always does that, so I'm like, surely there's some over under. Yeah, but maybe
she seemed to be really pushing.
Yeah, they showed. The shuck and the oysters was giving me like ulcers.
Yeah,
so stressful.
And oysters do not give people ulcers, so that's how you know it was bad.
Yeah, it was definitely the stress.
All right, let's move on to Dan with his Jackson Pollock inspired beet tartare.
Yeah,
I'll say it, really want a puffin. Ooh. His little pita English muffin thing.
It's a new food product. Dan
it
Puffins.
Looked delicious. It looked like I think we've literally talked about this dish before on the show, but at Girl and the Goat, Stephanie Izard has like a crumpet dish. Ooh. And those crumpets, they look sort of like the puffin. It's like a griddled, puffy little thing, and those are delicious. And so when Dan was making his puffins, I was like, sell that. Put that in a package and put it on the shelf. 100%. I want that.
They really sold it. And the fact that he came out with a fun original name, and then, anytime pita's fluffy, it's like so good. And then also just like, what if Top Chef started doing like each season like merch, like the version of merch, but like for the show it's like they just package up and then it's like anything you make on the show like they have to own like 30% or whatever. Like,
honestly, I would love that.
I would
so
buy
much. This reminds me that one of my favorite hummuses in the country, Zahav's Hummus. Zahav is a restaurant in Philadelphia. So there's really good hummus, like the best hummus I've ever had. And apparently they started packaging it and selling it recently, but it's only on the East Coast because of just like distribution. And I'm like, someone send me a tub of Zahav hummus.
So close yet so far.
I know. I'm going to fly out just for that hummus. Yeah. Kristen made a giant puffin sandwich. I was like, I love Kristen. Very charming.
Yes.
It's a good Kristen moment for me. That's all I have for Dan. It looked good.
Yeah.
They were like, it's a good vegetarian dish. You didn't miss the meat. I thought it was smart of him to play everything at room temperature. He talked about that.
Oh, right.
He called Manny's risotto, by the way. He was like, I don't know why Manny's doing a risotto. It's going to seize up when it gets to the table. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
So he's like, I'm going to do everything room temp.
It's becoming more and more clear how much of a vet Dan is.
Yeah.
And I really like that for him.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that for him. All right, let's move on. Michelle? Let's talk about Michelle.
Okay. I feel like I'm having a memory that might be a mismemory, but I remember M saying something about thinking that because of her history, her time management might be bad for cooking. And I feel like
because of her history,
like the style of chefery that she's been doing.
Okay.
And that, and I think because she also did like some personal chef stuff too, right? I don't know. I know she has the barbecue stuff.
She has barbecue stuff, and she has a sandwich company.
Yeah.
I don't remember
I might have
personal chef
just
stuff.
attributing someone else's thing to her, but because it seems like her biggest bumps were always like time management issues.
Yeah, I think
and
so.
And this kind of came back. And I think what would have helped Michelle is the ability to improvise. I feel like when she comes under the wire, she just focuses on completing what she kind of wants.
Okay.
Instead of being like, okay, this isn't like, like Sue was really good at that.
Yeah.
You had like, I think Danny is really good at that.
Yeah.
I think like everyone there kind of has like this isn't really gonna time out how I want it to.
Yeah.
So here's the switch. I think Dan has done that as well.
Okay.
And I find that
Pivoting.
Michelle, like in the past though, it has helped her where she's like, no, I'm just going to focus and I'm going to get it in as soon as I can.
Okay.
And in the past it helped, but then as we got deeper, it didn't. Like when her pork wasn't cooked all the way.
Right.
And now we're here with this table, and then like she's doesn't have confidence in it because she knows she didn't accomplish what she set out to do.
Okay. I'm hearing you.
Okay, but what?
I think that you're not wrong. Nothing I'm going to say is going to disagree with what you just said.
Okay.
Time management is a problem. But I think in this particular instance, the bigger problem was before time management. It was in concept.
Really?
I think she just got in her head about the challenge. I think she heard the challenge.
Sure.
And she was like, oh, no, I don't know what to do. And she panicked because it's like she talks about the fact that she does fucking barbecue and crab boils.
Yeah.
That's what the judges talked about, too. They're like, you've done this kind of thing before.
Yes.
So why did you, A, make brunch, B, decide to go with beets as your predominant flavor,
right.
and then C, try and do plating that does not behoove your skill set? Because she keeps talking about how like, oh, I'm not artistic, and I'm like, I get that, that's fine, not everyone is like visually artistic like that, but then why'd you try to do a mosaic? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Other people did fucking splashes on the table, and again, she talks about her plating style being quote comfortable, which I thought was a very cute euphemism, but it's like, okay, yeah, if you do a crab boil or whatever, it doesn't have to dump it on the fucking table as long as it's delicious.
Because I think that her style was more ambitious and artistic. Like you said, oh, Jackson Pollock, I'm going to throw some shit on the table. It's like, okay, like you threw some shit on the table and called it a Jackson Pollock. But as a mosaic, you're like, oh, this is a design that I'm aware of. You see it on tables all the time. It's usually a flat design. So I see the mindset where you're like, oh, I want to make this look good. So then that would push you towards the beets, which is a very colorful dish. So I think she was thinking from the design up, which might go back to what you're saying.
No.
Yes.
Because in the shopping, she was like, I don't know what I need. From the get-go, she's like, I guess I'll get this. I don't, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was all chaos, top to bottom.
It was, and I do think though, like the crazy thing about her normally though is she will be, because I mean I'm flashing back to episode 1 where she was kind of this breakout star, right? Like she was like, I've never really, I don't have as much cooking experience. This is how I got into it. I actually got into when I was in my 30s. Like this is that was her story. And then bam, she like knocked it out of the park, and it was such a fun thing. And it was sort of the thing too, where like she was not confident in herself, and then lo and behold, oh my God, she did amazing. So I just, and those types of people said, because there's been other instances, oh, I don't know, I'm not, mine was, I don't know, and I don't know this one. Oh, actually yours was the best. Oh my God, great. And
so you think she was banking on that?
No, I just think that like I thought as a viewer, like it's happening again. Okay, I actually don't trust what she says as much anymore, because she always says, oh, I don't know, and then it's actually amazing because she probably just has good instincts and she has good flavors, and she is a good chef, even though of course you get in there, you psych yourself out because it's pretty scary competition. So I think this was, again, it just takes one bad dish, but it's like I was surprised by how like ooh, she didn't pull it through this time. And that was such a like, even looking at it, you know what I mean? Like again, I get that the mosaic was the thing, but then to me, I'm like, then you need a lot of food because then it has to cover the whole thing, I guess. Versus it's just in the middle. It kind of looks like it would be a
everything
plate.
you're talking about with like this Pavlovian response to like, oh, but she's gonna pull it off.
It's gonna happen,
like,
and then
I wanted to believe that until she was like, well, here's my plate.
Exactly,
tiny
right?
fucking square on a whole table.
The tiny squares is when I was like, man, because to me, I was like. Given more time was the end goal. And that's why I was like, okay, maybe she was like, I think you're right. I think she should have put a meat on that.
Yeah.
That's what you do well.
Yeah.
And how many times have we seen people recover from being like, oh, this really didn't hit the points, but this is a good dish.
Right.
I mean, I think that's kind of what saved Manny in this particular instance. And so you kind of put two where you did beat, and then also, unfortunately, they had a great beet dish that same night, which is what I was saying about the dessert. So I think that also went against her, where it's like, yeah, you made this beet dish, but we had a beef.
We had really good beets, so your beets better be good.
Yeah, and it wasn't. So truly fumbling. I feel like, Michelle, I saw the vision. They may not see it, but I saw what you were building.
I can see what you're going for, Michelle, but do what you do well. That should have been the time to just roast a fucking pig and put it on the table. You know what I mean?
I also think something with those tables, like there was something to be said, even Danny's too, which we'll talk about, but like was also towards the center with a lot of area, and they liked that. But I think like it was something like with the ones that used all the space, it just looked more tremendous and that worked in their favor. And I don't know if I would have had that instinct just visually. Like, you'd think like, oh yeah, you can have it in the center and as long as it's symmetrical, but something about that in comparison after, you're like, oh yeah, maybe the game was to go big.
It does take a little bit of like an artist's eye to be like, what's a good use of negative space? Yeah. But I'm looking at it from a comedian's eye, and it was like a sight gag. It was like a comically small chunk of food on a comically large table. Do you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
The ratio was just right in my head where I'm like, that's a joke. It's a joke.
No, you're right.
I feel like
that's
the only possible other thing she might have thrown to save herself was like, I'm doing like an amuse-bouche type thing. Everyone take one bite.
In one bite.
yeah, perfect. You're like, oh, then that's a lot of food. Yeah.
Oh, that would have been the right improvised pivot in the moment. But she couldn't pull it off. All right, let's talk about our last person. That's Danny with his paella portrait. He said he staged Adelinea. So I'm like, this guy knows. You know what I mean? He gets it. He made a frame out of sauce that was measured to be dead center. They thought it was tape at first. Gail didn't even know it was sauce. Beautiful. Gorgeous. Oh, yeah. Loved it.
Right. And he used the like painter's tape to make it perfect, which is hilarious.
Feels like a real Danny thing.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Danny, yeah.
But again, he did the thing, which he does a lot, which you're talking about, where he was able to adapt in the process. But
burnt his rice.
Yeah, he burned the rice. And he's had multiple instances of, oh my God, I thought he was going home kind of thing. When they're cooking, they're showing all the things going wrong, and especially burning rice. And he's like, this was the cornerstone of it doesn't work without the rice. This is the basis. And I'm like, Jesus, what are you going to do? He saves it, and then it's actually small amount of rice. And I mean, and he didn't say like there was actually supposed to be more rice. Right. Good. Yeah. And then nobody even noticed. They were like, oh, I love the texture of this rice. And then they just kind of like kept eating.
Yeah. He pulled it off.
Yeah.
All right. So our top dishes are Laura, Danny, and Dan, and our winner is Laura, who came back from Last Chance Kitchen with a vengeance. I wrote down, will a villain win this season? Ooh. Which I think is, I can't remember the last time a villain won. Maybe Marcel? It had to have been early seasons. You know what I mean?
Sure. And I feel like there's rarely a villain. And, even in this, just because of contests and reality TV, villains get real exaggerated. This is pretty subtle as we're discussing.
Yeah, she's like villain light. You know what I mean?
It's like, is that intentional? But again, going back to that lie thing, it's like they did have to choose to show her, say specifically, oh, I did this before, and then show her, oh, I haven't done this before. Oh, so somebody's deciding that.
She's on my team. I am rooting for her. I picked her. But I'm like, these edits are not very kind.
Somebody knows
there's
something.
Someone on the editing team who's like, nah.
Right.
I got this footage and I'm putting it in that episode.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. Okay, so we've started talking about this, but Manny and Michelle both at the bottom. They both knew it was bad. And you think Manny should have gone home?
Yeah, I think but for me, it's a way that they don't judge, so I'm not too tight about it. They don't judge your overall performance.
Sure.
There's always I think, and that's the beauty of it, is like you can fuck up one week and come back and they're not going to be like, yeah, this is good, but like last week that was a stinker. But
as chefs are wont to say, you're only as good as your last cook.
Yes. But I guess for me, at this point in the competition, I feel like we should look at this. But I think they've been coached. They've had everything they needed to have. And I just maybe my opinion will change next week. But I feel like every one of the other chefs feels like they are blossoming, turning into their own, elevating. And Manny, who started Manny is a very fancy guy.
Yeah.
But
you think he's peaked?
No, I just think as someone who is an Angelino who is very, very tapped in on Mexican dishes.
Sure.
I'm like, I know what you're doing. I know what you're doing. I know that you've stayed in your wheel. And here's the thing. Michelle technically kind of did the same thing. Everything is a Southern take. But why it works for Michelle is Michelle has been really good at being like, this is the Southern version of this thing.
Right.
And that's why it's always kind of been exciting. Where Manny, you're just doing the thing. You are cooking the food.
Right,
you cook well. Even the one that, the little Hot Pocket thing where he's and we went and we were like, oh, it's at a restaurant. Mind you, it could have came after the season.
Sure.
I just don't think it had to do.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So you think Manny's not long for this world?
I think I think Manny has.
He's gonna die.
He's gonna pass away.
I think the only reason I think Manny's not long is because now with Michelle gone, it is just bangers.
Yeah.
Laura, Danny, Savannah, and Dan are crushers.
I don't disagree.
I couldn't tell you out of those four who's going to win.
Right.
If I add him to the mix, I could pick one person who's not going to win.
Right.
And that's not a diss. That's not a dish.
Sure.
It's
no.
just
okay. Based on the last couple weeks.
Yes, based on the last couple weeks, and just based on the whole season. If we lined up all the dishes of all those people who are left, and then put them next to Manny's, you'd be like, oh yeah, they're doing stuff up here, and Manny's, like you said, is good.
Yeah,
I'll eat every one of Manny's dishes every time. There's been dishes that Manny has put out that I've been like, ooh, I want that so bad, and they're like, meh. I like Manny's cooking. What I'm saying is that right now where we're at the last 5.
Yeah.
4 of those 5s are, I think almost all of them have had a comment from one of the judges that are like, oh, I'll put this in a restaurant right now.
Right, yeah.
Or some variation that didn't get them the points. But
that makes sense.
Yeah.
I hear you. But also, just adjusting for the bias here. You are now fully out of the competition. So
this is. So
I understand why you're upset.
Yeah. That I think that adds an extra element that I wasn't clocking until you said that. I was like, oh yeah, that's why I'm so.
That's your last team member.
Yeah, you're about to hear my last accrual of points.
Well, that's not true because you get points if your chef is drafted as a sous chef in the finale.
Okay.
So you could still get points.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of our point system. You're never
let's
fully
just see
out.
what the distance is between our points.
Great. The last thing I want to say about Michelle is I would love it if she came back for All Stars, if there's another All Star season.
Oh my gosh. Give Mike your money because that is such a good pick.
All right, let's do our points. You can find our scoring rules on our Instagram at Top Chef Fantasy League. The quickfire favorite dishes were Savannah, Michelle, and Dan. That's a half point each. Quickfire winner was Savannah with 1 point. The judges table was Laura, Danny, and Dan with 1 point each. The elimination challenge winner was Laura with 2 points. Savannah and Michelle both said they missed their family or boyfriend. That's a quarter of a point each. Manny messed up his risotto and missed plating. That's negative a quarter of a point on each count. So at the end of this episode, if you gained 0.75 points, the important thing is forward progress.
Yes.
You're not moving backwards.
Yes.
Sierra, you gained 2.5, which is kind of the numbers I've been putting up all season. At the end of this episode, I'm getting 4.25 points.
Wow, that's with
good.
a full half-point loss.
Yeah. Would have been 4.75 without Manny.
Oh, right. But yeah, both your people won the challenges, and
So out of the top 5,
back.
you have 2 people going in.
Right, and you have 3.
I have 3.
Because Laura's coming back.
So I do have slightly better odds of getting more of my chefs into the finale, which would get me more points.
Yeah, I mean, you have 3. So
if you do catastrophically, I could catch up. But it's not likely.
I mean, but anything could happen.
Anything could happen.
This is the Top Chef, it seems, this season's way of just one bad day.
One bad day away. And just to put a cap on it, here's our leaderboard, Iffy, with 20.5 points. Me in the middle, 36.75. You're in the lead with 47.75. So you were up by 11 points, which is a lot.
Not as much as it's been.
Not as much as it's been. I am gaining on you. I'm within striking distance. So we'll see what happens within the next couple weeks. If you have any thoughts or suggestions, drop us a line on our Instagram at Top Chef Fantasy League. If you're doing your own Top Chef Fantasy League, please tag us, Amy Schneider. For full unedited episodes, you can check us out on YouTube. Thanks again to my co-hosts here, Kato and Iffy Wadiwe. We'll be back next week. Don't forget to start watching MasterChef. That's Wednesdays on Fox, because we will be covering MasterChef as soon as this season of Top Chef is over.
Yes. But yeah, I hope you're enjoying this new transition into 2/3 of a fantasy podcast and 1/3 of a Top Chef watch along. We're gonna
have recap from this corner and analysis from this corner.
Yes.
Top Chef Fantasy League is hosted and produced by Mike Cabalon, Sierra Kato, and Iffy Wadiwe. Our theme song is composed by Dylan Van Auken. Special thanks to Jarvis Johnson. Follow us on Instagram and YouTube at Top Chef Fantasy League.